The night sky over the quiet forest was calm. Stars glowed like silver dust and the air was still. But suddenly a bright light tore across the heavens. It was not a falling star. It was faster, brighter, and closer. The trees shook as a fireball roared down from the sky. With a deafening crash, something hit the ground deep inside the woods. Birds scattered into the air, animals fled, and the silence of the night broke into chaos. Miles away, a man named Daniel was walking home from his late shift. He lived in a small wooden cabin near the forest edge. He was tired, his hands rough with work and his heart heavy with loneliness. Daniel had lost too much in life: family, love, and hope. Every night felt empty to him. But that night was different. He saw the flash. The ground under his feet shook. His heart raced. Something had fallen from the sky. Curiosity burned in him. Against his fear, Daniel grabbed a lantern and ran into the forest. Branches scratched his arms. Leaves cracked under his boots, but he kept running toward the smoke and strange glow. When he reached the crash site, he froze. A metallic pod lay broken among shattered trees. Its surface was glowing hot, strange symbols carved into its body. Sparks hissed from broken wires. The smell of burning metal filled the air. It was not from Earth. Daniel's eyes widened. He whispered, "What in the world?" Then he heard it. A soft cry. Weak. Painful. He stepped closer and looked inside the cracked pod. His breath caught. There was someone inside. A girl, or at least she looked like one. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, pale but touched with a strange silver hue. Her long hair shimmered with a faint blue shine, as if light lived within each strand. And on her head rested a delicate crown-like band, half broken from the crash. She was young, no older than him, beautiful but not human. An alien. Her body trembled as she tried to move. Her leg was twisted at a painful angle, blood seeping from the wound. Her lips opened, whispering words in a language Daniel could not understand. Her voice was weak, filled with fear. Then her eyes rolled back and she collapsed against the pod wall. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to run. This was not his fight. He was just a simple man broken by life. What could he do? But as he stared at the alien girl, something inside him moved. She was hurt. Alone. Afraid. Just like him. He stepped forward. His hands shook as he reached out and gently pulled her from the pod. Her body was lighter than he expected, her skin warm and strange against his touch. He laid her down on the soft grass. Her leg was broken. The bone pressed against the skin. Daniel winced. He had seen broken legs before, back when he worked in the mines with other men. He knew how much pain this injury caused. The girl groaned, whispering again, her eyes half open. She looked at him. For a moment their eyes met. Hers were bright, glowing like liquid silver. Even in pain they were full of fire, full of fear, full of hope. Daniel spoke softly. "Don't worry. I'll help you." She could not understand his words, but she seemed to sense his tone. Her fingers curled weakly around his arm before she slipped into unconsciousness again. The forest was silent now, except for the faint crackle of the smoking pod. Daniel looked around nervously. Was someone or something coming after her? He did not know. But one thing was clear. If he left her here, she would die. He took a deep breath. His heart, broken for so long, now found a spark of purpose. He could not abandon her, not when she needed him. Lifting her carefully, he carried her away from the wreck. His arms strained, but he did not stop. Step by step, he walked back toward his cabin. The stars above seemed to watch in silence, as if the universe itself had chosen this moment. When Daniel reached his cabin, he laid her gently on his bed. He looked at her broken leg and clenched his jaw. He had no fancy tools, no doctor's training, but he had his hands, his will, and the little knowledge he once gained from patching up injured miners. For the first time in years, Daniel whispered a prayer. Not for himself, but for her. "Stay alive," he said softly. "Just stay alive." Outside, the forest grew darker. Unseen eyes might already be searching for the fallen princess. But inside that cabin, under the glow of a single lantern, one man was preparing to fight fate with nothing but his courage, and a heart that was slowly beginning to beat with hope again. Daniel sat beside the unconscious alien girl. The small lantern in his wooden cabin flickered, throwing long shadows across the walls. Her silver glowing skin looked pale, her breathing shallow. Her leg was broken badly, and he knew if he did nothing she might not survive the night. He touched her wrist gently. Her pulse was weak but steady. Her hand twitched at his touch as though her body knew he was there even in sleep. Daniel swallowed hard. His mind screamed at him, "She's not human. What if she wakes up and attacks you? What if someone is looking for her?" But his heart gave him another voice. "She is hurt. She needs you. Don't walk away again." He lit the fire in the old stove and boiled water. His cabin was poor, but he had some bandages, herbs, and tools from his mining days. He had fixed broken bones before. Never one like this, but the steps were the same. He tore a piece of cloth, washed it in hot water, and pressed it on her wound to stop the bleeding. She stirred, groaning faintly. Her silver eyes opened halfway, focusing on him. For a moment, Daniel froze. Those glowing eyes were strange, but not cruel. They were full of pain, yes, but also trust. She was too weak to speak, yet she didn't resist his hands. "Easy. I'll fix it," Daniel whispered, even though he knew she could not understand. He examined her leg. The bone had shifted badly. It needed to be set back in place. He remembered the screams of men in the mines when this was done. The pain was terrible, but it had to be done. Daniel hesitated. Could he do this to her? She might hate him for it, but if he didn't, she would never walk again. He found 2 straight pieces of wood and tied them with strips of cloth to make splints. Then he poured water over his hands, rubbed them clean, and knelt beside her. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "but this will hurt." With steady hands, Daniel took hold of her leg. Her body jerked slightly at his touch, even in her weak state. Her breath quickened, eyes fluttering open in panic. She whispered something in her alien tongue, soft, desperate. Daniel shook his head. I know. But trust me." He pulled sharply, guiding the bone back into place with one firm motion. The princess screamed, a sound so raw and piercing that it shook Daniel to his core. Her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. The silver glow in her eyes flared brighter, almost blinding for a moment. But then just as suddenly she went limp again, collapsing into unconsciousness. Daniel's chest heaved. Sweat dripped from his brow. He quickly tied the splints around her leg, wrapping it tightly but carefully. He worked with determination, his hands firm though his heart trembled. When he finished, he sat back, breathing hard. The girl lay still, her face pale, her chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. He touched her forehead. Warm, maybe too warm. Fever. He crushed herbs, mixed them with water, and pressed the wet cloth against her skin. For hours, Daniel stayed by her side. He whispered words, not knowing why. Words she couldn't even understand. "You're strong. You'll live. You have to." The night dragged on. Outside, wolves howled in the distance, and the forest whispered with unseen dangers. But inside, the cabin felt like a fragile bubble of safety, where one broken man tried to save a stranger from the stars. At last, as dawn touched the horizon, the girl stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faint silver in the weak morning light. She blinked at Daniel, confusion in her gaze. He leaned forward. "You're safe. I helped you." She frowned, her lips moving with strange words. He couldn't understand, but he heard the question in her tone. She was asking why. Daniel gave a tired smile. "Because you needed me." For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then slowly, her hand lifted and touched his arm. Her fingers were light, trembling, but filled with something Daniel had not felt in years. Gratitude. Her eyes softened. She whispered one word, broken but clear. Daniel's heart skipped. She knew what he was. "Yes," he said softly. "I'm human, and I won't let you die." The princess closed her eyes again, but this time not from weakness. This time it was trust. Daniel sat back in his chair. Exhaustion pulled at him, but inside he felt a spark. For years he had been living in darkness with no reason to go on. Now in one single night he had found a reason to fight again. Little did he know the forest outside was not empty. Strange shadows moved among the trees. The crash had been loud. Someone, or something, was searching for the fallen princess. But Daniel did not see them yet. His eyes were only on her, the alien princess with the broken leg, and the power to mend a broken heart. The morning sun crept through the cracks of Daniel's cabin. Warm golden light touched the wooden floor, and the smell of smoke from the fire still hung in the air. Daniel sat in a chair, head resting in his hand, too tired to notice the sunrise. He had not slept all night. His body begged for rest, but his eyes stayed fixed on the girl lying on his bed. She had not moved for hours. Her breathing was steady, her chest rising and falling like the rhythm of waves. Her skin, faintly glowing silver, looked calmer now, not so pale as before. Daniel checked her splint again, making sure it held firm. He brushed a stray lock of her strange shimmering hair from her face. "She's alive," he whispered, as if saying it aloud made it true. Suddenly, her eyelids flickered. Daniel straightened in surprise. Her eyes opened, bright silver, glowing softly even in daylight. She blinked several times, confused, as if trying to remember where she was. When she saw Daniel, her body tensed. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her leg. She gasped, falling back with a sharp cry. "Easy," Daniel said quickly, holding up his hands. "Don't move. Your leg is still healing." She stared at him, breathing fast, her eyes full of fear. Her lips moved, speaking in her alien tongue. Sharp musical sounds Daniel had never heard before. He shook his head. "I don't understand you," he said gently, "but I mean no harm." The girl's gaze darted around the room, the wooden walls, the small fire, the tools on the table. Everything was strange to her. She touched the blanket covering her, then looked back at Daniel. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then she spoke one word again, the same as last night. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, human," he pointed to himself. "Daniel," she tilted her head, repeating softly, "L." The way her voice shaped his name made something stir inside him. He smiled faintly. Then he pointed at her. "And you? What's your name?" The girl's eyes softened. She pressed a hand to her chest and whispered, "Liara." "Liara," Daniel repeated. The name rolled off his tongue like music. She nodded once, confirming. For the first time, Daniel felt the distance between them shrink. She had a name. She was not just an alien anymore. She was Liara. But questions burned in his mind. Who was she? Why had she fallen here? Was someone chasing her? Before he could ask, Liara closed her eyes for a moment as if gathering strength. Then with slow, careful words, she tried speaking again. This time her voice was broken, but there was effort to shape human sounds. "Thank you," Daniel's breath caught. She had learned. In one night she had listened and copied his words. He nodded quickly. "You're welcome." Her lips curved faintly, the closest thing to a smile since he found her. But peace did not last long. A sound came from outside, the crunch of leaves, a faint metallic hum. Liara's eyes widened in terror. She sat up too fast, groaning in pain, clutching Daniel's arm with surprising strength. Her silver eyes blazed with fear. She whispered rapidly in her language, her voice shaking. Daniel didn't understand, but he knew one thing. Someone was out there. He grabbed the old hunting rifle from the corner of the cabin. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were steady. He looked at her. "Stay here." Liara gripped his hand tighter, shaking her head violently. Her gaze begged him not to leave. Daniel hesitated. He had never felt anyone depend on him like this in years. Her fear was real, her trust fragile. He gently squeezed her hand. "I'll keep you safe." She slowly let go, though her eyes never left him. Daniel stepped outside, scanning the trees. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Then in the distance he saw it, strange shadows moving between the trunks. Tall figures, armored, carrying weapons that shimmered faintly with energy. His stomach dropped. These were no hunters or travelers. They were soldiers. He ducked back inside quickly, shutting the door. Liara's eyes were wide, her breath fast. She whispered one word over and over. "Zirath! Zirath!" Daniel didn't know what it meant, but her trembling told him enough. The enemy was here. He set the rifle against the wall and knelt beside her. "They're coming for you, aren't they?" She nodded weakly, tears filling her glowing eyes. Daniel clenched his jaw. He didn't know why fate had chosen him for this. He was just a broken man, not a soldier, not a hero. But as he looked at Liara, fear etched into her face. Something inside him hardened. He had already saved her once. He wasn't going to stop now. "Listen," he said firmly, even though she might not understand. "As long as I'm alive, they won't take you." Liara stared at him, her lips trembling. Slowly she reached out, touching his chest right over his heart. Her voice was soft, but the word was clear. "Promise." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had made promises before, ones he could not keep. But this time, looking into her silver eyes, he gave a single nod. "I promise." Outside, the shadows moved closer. The hunt had begun. Inside, in a small wooden cabin, a human and an alien princess prepared to face it together. The forest outside Daniel's cabin was no longer calm. Strange shadows shifted between the trees, moving with purpose, moving like predators. The morning wind carried faint sounds, low hums, the click of metal, and the crunch of armored feet. Inside, Daniel stood still, his hand pressed against the wooden wall, listening. Liara lay on the bed, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She whispered the word again, trembling. Zerath. Daniel glanced back at her. Zerath? Who are they? She shook her head, struggling to form words in his tongue. Hunters, killers. For me, her voice cracked. The way she said it made Daniel's blood run cold. Whoever these Zerath were, they were not here for peace. They had come to take her, or kill her. Daniel loaded his rifle with shaking hands. The weapon was old, scratched from years of hunting deer and wolves. Against armored soldiers with strange weapons, it was almost useless. But it was all he had. Liara tried to push herself up, groaning in pain, clutching her leg. Hide! Run! She whispered, desperate. Daniel shook his head. No, if they find you out there, you'll die. Here, maybe we have a chance. Her silver eyes locked onto his. They were full of fear, but also something else. She wanted him to survive. She wanted him to save himself. But Daniel could not. Not anymore. For years, his life had been empty. No reason to fight, no reason to live. But now there was someone who needed him. He checked the door again. The shadows were closer. He could see faint lights glowing between the trees like sparks of fire. The Zerath were surrounding the cabin. Daniel's heart pounded. He whispered to Liara, Stay low. Don't make a sound. The first blow came hard. The door rattled as something struck it. Dust fell from the ceiling. A second blow followed, louder, stronger. Liara gasped, grabbing Daniel's arm. They come? The door burst open with a crash, splinters flying across the room. 3 figures stepped inside. They were tall, taller than Daniel, wearing dark armor that shimmered with strange symbols. Their helmets glowed faint blue, hiding their faces. In their hands they carried long weapons, humming with dangerous energy. One of them pointed at Liara and spoke in a harsh, metallic language. The sound made Daniel's skin crawl. Liara's face turned pale. She whispered to Daniel, They want me. The soldier moved forward. Daniel raised his rifle. His hands shook, but his aim was steady. Stay back, he shouted. The Zerath soldier ignored him, stepping closer to the bed. Daniel pulled the trigger. The shot cracked through the cabin. The bullet slammed into the soldier's chest, throwing sparks. The armor held, but the impact pushed the soldier back a step. The other 2 soldiers turned sharply, their weapons glowing brighter. Daniel ducked as a beam of blue energy seared past his head, burning a hole into the wooden wall. Heat washed over him. His heart pounded harder. He rolled across the floor, fired again, hitting another soldier in the shoulder. This time the bullet broke through a weak spot in the armor. The soldier roared in anger, staggering back. The 3rd soldier raised his weapon to strike. Suddenly, Liara cried out. Her eyes glowed bright silver, almost blinding. She raised her hand weakly, and for a moment the air shimmered. A wave of light burst from her palm, slamming into the soldier. He flew back against the wall, armor sparking and hissing. Daniel froze in shock. He had never seen anything like it. Liara collapsed against the bed, gasping, her strength drained. The soldiers recovered quickly. One aimed again, fury in his stance. Daniel fired, hitting the weapon itself. It exploded in sparks, knocking the soldier to the floor, but more shadows moved outside. Through the broken door, Daniel could see at least 5 more Zerath soldiers closing in. He cursed under his breath. They could not hold the cabin. Not against this. He rushed to Liara, lifting her gently. She was weak, but she clung to him, whispering, Run. Forrest, hide. Daniel nodded. He grabbed his lantern, a small bag of supplies, and his rifle. Then he kicked open the back window, carrying Liara out into the trees. The forest swallowed them in shadows and mist. Behind them, the cabin shook as more Zerath stormed inside. Daniel ran as fast as he could, his legs burning, his breath ragged. Liara's arms wrapped weakly around his neck, her face buried against his shoulder. Hold on, he whispered. I won't let them take you. The sounds of pursuit grew louder, cracks of branches, the hum of energy weapons, voices barking in that cruel language. Daniel ducked behind a fallen log, setting Liara down carefully. She looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. They not stop, she whispered. Daniel gripped his rifle, his jaw tight. Then neither will I. For the first time in years, he felt alive. Not because he was safe, but because someone depended on him. Someone who trusted him. Someone he would die to protect. The hunt had begun, but Daniel was no longer running from his past. He was running toward something new, a fight worth fighting and a promise worth keeping. The forest was alive with danger. Branches cracked under heavy armored boots and faint blue lights cut through the mist like blades. The Zerath hunters moved quickly, their voices sharp, echoing between the trees. Daniel crouched low behind the fallen log, his breath ragged. Liara leaned against him, her glowing eyes dim with exhaustion. Her leg was still weak, though the splint held firm. She whispered, her voice trembling. "Daniel." They not stop. Always chase. He looked at her, his jaw tight. "Then we'll stay ahead of them. I'll keep you safe." She shook her head weakly. "Danger, for you." "Leave me." Daniel almost laughed, but it was bitter. "Not a chance. You think I'd drag you through the woods just to give up now? No, Liara, you're not dying here. Not while I can still move." Her eyes softened, but sadness lingered. She had never seen a human before, yet here was one risking his life for her. Daniel peeked over the log. The hunters were closing in. He had to move. He adjusted the rifle strap across his shoulder, lifted Liara gently and pushed forward into the thick brush. The forest was his ally. Daniel knew these woods since childhood. Every hollow tree, every hidden stream, every secret path. The Zerath were powerful, but they were strangers here. That gave him one chance. He carried Liara across a shallow creek, letting the water wash away their tracks. Then he ducked under low branches, weaving through thickets where armored soldiers would struggle. The sounds of pursuit grew faint, then strong again. They were tracking, scanning, hunting like machines. Liara stirred against his chest. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and something deeper. "What, help me?" she asked in broken human words. Daniel slowed, breathing hard. The question cut into him. He could have said, "Because you fell from the sky." He could have said, "Because you need me." But the truth was harder. "I lost people," he said quietly. "My family, gone. My heart's been empty for years. Then I found you. And for the first time, I feel like I have a reason again." Liara's lips parted. She touched his chest lightly over his heart, just as she had before. "Broken," she whispered. Daniel nodded, swallowing. "Yeah, broken." Her fingers lingered, trembling. "I fix," she said softly. The words stunned him. She was the one with a broken body, hunted by enemies, yet she spoke of fixing his heart. Before he could answer, a crack of energy seared past them. A tree exploded into splinters. Daniel dropped low, shielding Liara as another shot rang out. The hunters had caught up. "Run!" Liara urged weakly, clutching his arm. Daniel sprinted through the trees, weaving left and right as blue beams cut through the branches. His legs burned, lungs aching, but he didn't stop. He reached a narrow ravine, the ground falling into a rushing stream below. Without thinking, he jumped. They plunged into icy water, crashing against rocks, pulled by the current. Daniel held Liara tightly, fighting to keep her head above the water. The river roared, dragging them downstream, far from the shouts of the Zerath. When they finally washed up on the bank, Daniel coughed hard, his body aching, but Liara was alive. He pulled her onto the grass, collapsing beside her. For a long time they lay there, only the sound of water filling the air. Daniel's chest heaved, his body trembling from exhaustion. Liara turned her head slowly, her silver hair wet, her eyes searching his face. "You, save again," she whispered. Daniel gave a weak smile. "Guess I'm getting used to it." She laughed faintly, a sound so soft and fragile it barely seemed real. Yet to Daniel it was the most beautiful sound he had heard in years. As night began to fall, Daniel carried Liara to a small cave hidden in the cliffs. He set her down carefully, built a small fire, and gave her water from his flask. The firelight painted her face in warm glow, mixing with the faint silver of her skin. She watched the flames, her eyes distant, then spoke slowly. "I am Princess of Elindra." Daniel froze. A princess? He had guessed she was important, but not this. Liara continued, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Zerath, they want power. They kill my people. I escape, but crash here." Her hand touched her broken leg. Now weak. No kingdom. No hope. Daniel stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. She was not just an alien girl. She was royalty, a leader, a survivor of war. He reached across the fire, placing his rough hand gently over hers. You're not alone anymore. You still have hope. As long as I'm here, you do. Her silver eyes met his, glistening with unshed tears. Slowly, she squeezed his hand back. For the first time since her crash, Liara allowed herself to believe she was safe. But outside the cave, the forest was not silent. The Zerath were still searching. Their hunt had not ended. It had only just begun. The fire in the small cave flickered softly, throwing warm light across the stone walls. Outside, the night was alive with the distant hum of the Zerath patrols, their glowing lights passing through the forest like restless ghosts. But inside, for a moment, there was quiet. Daniel sat close to the fire, drying his soaked clothes, while Liara rested on a blanket nearby. Her glowing skin shimmered faintly in the firelight, and her silver eyes watched him with curiosity. For the first time since her crash, she felt safe enough to speak. You fight, she whispered slowly, choosing each human word with care. But you are not soldier. Daniel gave a tired laugh. You noticed. He poked the fire with a stick, sparks flying upward. No, I'm not a soldier. I was just a miner. I used to dig in the mountains for stone, coal, iron. That was my life. Liara tilted her head. Then why fight? For me? The question made Daniel pause. He stared into the flames, his jaw tightening. His hands gripped the stick until his knuckles turned white. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, heavy with memories. I had a family once, a wife, a daughter. He stopped, swallowing hard. They were my world. But sickness took them. Too fast, too cruel. I couldn't save them. I tried everything, but I failed. His voice cracked at the last word. He dropped the stick into the fire, his shoulders tense. For years I've lived empty. No reason to wake up. No reason to breathe, just shadows of what I lost. His eyes glistened in the firelight. When I found you, Liara, I thought you were another ghost. Another thing I couldn't save. But then, he looked at her, his eyes fierce. Then I realized I could. I can save you. And maybe, just maybe, saving you means I can save myself too. Liara's chest tightened as she listened. His pain was raw, and though his words were simple, they carried a weight she understood. She too had lost her people. She too carried the burden of failure. Her eyes filled with tears that shimmered like liquid silver. Slowly she pushed herself up, wincing as her leg throbbed and crawled closer to him. She reached out with trembling fingers, placing her hand over his heart. Broken, she whispered again, her voice soft but steady. But not forever. Daniel looked at her, his breath catching. In Alindra, she continued slowly, we say, heart can heal, if another heart shares the pain. Her words struck deep. He had shut his heart for so long, locked it away behind walls of grief, and here was an alien princess, hunted, wounded, yet offering him something he had thought lost. Hope. He covered her hand with his, rough and warm. His voice was husky. And you'd share it? Even with someone like me? Liara gave a faint smile. You saved my life twice. You fight when no hope. You carry me. When I cannot walk, you are more than you believe. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to tell her what her words meant, but no sound came. Instead, silence filled the cave, a silence not of fear, but of understanding. For a while they sat like that, side by side, the firelight painting them in gold and silver. But the moment broke when Liara suddenly gasped, clutching her temple. Her eyes glowed brighter, filled with pain. Liara. Daniel caught her shoulders, panic rising. She shook her head quickly. Not hurt. Memory. Her voice was strained as images flashed in her mind. Her kingdom burning, the Zerath storming the royal palace, her people screaming. She saw her father, the king, falling to the ground, shouting her name. She saw herself escaping in a pod, heart torn, as everything she knew vanished in fire. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, They killed all. My father, my mother, all gone. Daniel pulled her into his arms without hesitation. She trembled against him, her body shaking with grief. I'm sorry, he whispered, his own voice breaking. I know that pain. I know what it's like to lose everyone. She clung to him tightly, her forehead pressed against his chest. For the first time she allowed herself to cry, not as a princess, but as a lost girl. And for the first time in years, Daniel held someone not because they needed saving, but because they needed comfort. As the night deepened, their breaths slowly calmed. Liara's sobs faded into quiet, and she leaned against him, her body still but her heart a little lighter. Daniel stroked her shimmering hair gently. "We'll make it through this, together." Her silver eyes lifted to meet his. They were wet with tears, but they shone with a new light. "Together," she whispered. The fire crackled, wrapping them in warmth. Outside, the Zerath searched the forest with cold determination. But inside the cave, two broken souls found something the hunters could never touch, a bond forming in the dark, strong enough to heal hearts and maybe to change destinies. The night was not silent anymore. Outside the cave, the sound of armored feet grew louder. The Zerath were close. Their strange weapons buzzed with energy, glowing faintly in the darkness. Shadows moved against the trees like predators circling their prey. Inside, Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle. His hands were steady now, not from lack of fear, but from something stronger, resolve. He looked at Liara, who sat near the fire, her silver eyes glowing softly. She was still weak, but her spirit was unbroken. "They found us," Daniel whispered. Liara nodded slowly. "Yes, no more running." Her voice trembled, but her eyes held courage. Daniel crouched beside her. "I made you a promise. I'm keeping it. They won't take you." Her hand reached for his, gripping it tightly. "We fight. Together." For a moment, Daniel almost refused. She was still injured, still healing. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw fire. She was not just a girl to protect, she was a princess, a survivor, and his partner in this fight. The cave shook as an explosion ripped the air. Stones fell from above. The entrance glowed blue as the Zerath blasted it open. Daniel pulled Liara behind a large boulder. Sparks rained down as armored soldiers stormed inside. Their glowing helmets lit the cave, their weapons raised. The first soldier stepped forward. Daniel fired. The shot rang out, striking the soldier in the visor. The helmet cracked, sparks flying as the soldier collapsed. The others roared in their harsh language, firing beams of energy. Daniel ducked, pulling Liara low as the walls scorched and burned. The smell of smoke filled the air. Liara raised her hand, her silver eyes blazing. A wave of shimmering light burst from her palm, striking two soldiers at once. Their armor sparked violently, forcing them back. But the effort drained her. She gasped, nearly collapsing. Daniel caught her. "Easy, save your strength." She shook her head weakly. "No, I must fight." Another soldier advanced, weapon glowing bright. Daniel's rifle clicked empty, no more bullets. His chest tightened. He grabbed a broken piece of rock from the ground, heavy and sharp. With a roar, he charged. The soldier swung its weapon, but Daniel dodged, slamming the rock into the soldier's helmet. Sparks exploded and the soldier fell. Pain shot through Daniel's side as another blast grazed him, burning his skin. He stumbled but stayed on his feet. He could not stop. Liara's voice rang out, trembling but strong. "Daniel!" She raised both hands, her entire body glowing. A surge of silver light burst outward, filling the cave. The Zerath soldiers staggered, blinded, their weapons failing. The light spread like fire, wrapping around Daniel too. He felt warmth, strength, something deep inside his broken heart beginning to heal. Liara collapsed to her knees, but Daniel caught her before she fell. Her voice was faint, almost breaking. "I gave it my power. You fight, for us both." Daniel's chest heaved, but when he looked at the soldiers, something inside him had changed. His fear was gone, his weakness replaced by new strength. Her power burned in him like fire, and his heart, once broken, beat with purpose. The soldiers charged again. Daniel moved faster than before. He dodged blasts, swung the heavy rifle like a club, and struck with fury. He was no longer just a man, he was a shield, a sword, a protector. One by one, the Zerath fell. Their weapons clattered to the ground, their armored bodies sparking with defeat. At last, silence filled the cave. Smoke curled in the air. The ground was littered with broken armor. Daniel dropped to his knees, breathing hard. He turned to Liara, who was lying weakly against the boulder. Her silver glow had dimmed, but her eyes still shone. He crawled to her side, pulling her gently into his arms. "It's over," he whispered. "We won." She smiled faintly, her fingers brushing his face. "No, you won. You saved me." Daniel shook his head, tears filling his eyes. "No, Liara, you saved me. My heart was dead, until you gave me a reason to fight again." Her silver eyes softened, tears glistening. "Then we saved each other. Their foreheads touched, a moment of pure connection between two broken souls who had found healing in each other. The forest outside was silent now, the threat gone, for the moment. But the future was uncertain. More Zerath might come. Liara's kingdom was still gone, and Daniel was still just one man in a vast universe. But as he held her, he no longer felt alone. Neither did she. The alien princess with a healed leg, and the human with a healed heart, had found something greater than survival. They had found hope, together, and together they would face whatever came next.